I want to start by telling you about Margaret. Let's just, picture her for a moment. It's a Sunday evening. The sun is starting to set, casting those long, kind of quiet shadows across her living room. And she's sitting in her favorite chair.
Oh, I can picture that perfectly.
Right. It's very peaceful. And the phone rings. It's her daughter, calling for their usual weekend catch-up. And her daughter asks, how was your week, Mom? Like, how are you feeling? And Margaret gives her most frequent answer. She just says, I'm fine.
Yeah, fine. It's such a comfortable word to hide behind. It's almost designed to not invite any further questions, you know?
Exactly. It
Fine.
just shuts the conversation right down. But, if we look a little closer at Margaret's reality in that moment, the picture tells a slightly different story.
How so?
Well, lately she's been moving just a little bit slower when she pushes herself up from those couch cushions. And for years, she had this routine of taking a long walk through her neighborhood every single evening. Like, it was totally non-negotiable.
Oh, wow. Good for her.
Yeah. But recently, she's been skipping those walks. The weather's too chilly, or, the day felt a bit too long, or there's a television program she wants to catch.
There's always a perfectly reasonable explanation.
Always. Yet if you asked her, she would tell you with absolute sincerity that she is perfectly fine.
And the thing is, Margaret didn't actually think she was tired. She wasn't, deceiving her daughter. She truly believed she was just going about her normal life, settling into a more comfortable routine.
Right.
The exhaustion was invisible to her, mostly because it had arrived so gradually.
It really did.
Yeah.
And, it actually took an outside observer to break that illusion. A close friend came over for coffee, someone who had known Margaret for decades.
Oh, those are the friends who really see you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this friend just casually mentioned that Margaret seemed different lately. Quieter, less present in the room. Her eyes seemed to sort of glaze over a bit during the conversation.
Ouch. But sometimes we need to hear that.
We do. And that simple observation was the catalyst. It was the first time Margaret paused, sat back, and really wondered if fine was actually the truth, or just, a habit.
That quiet realization on the couch is something almost all of us experience at some point. I mean, that feeling of being completely drained, yet unable to pinpoint a physical reason why.
Which is exactly what we're getting into today.
Yes. We are doing a deep dive into Robert Dragon's recent writing on this very subject. We're looking at the sort of hidden architecture of human fatigue, because Margaret's story points directly to a much larger, nearly universal experience.
And it forces us to ask a pretty profound question for you, the listener. What if we've been thinking about rest all wrong?
That's the real hook, isn't it? Because our instinct, the moment we feel that creeping sense of overwhelm, is to just surrender to gravity.
Oh, 100%. The workday ends, the commute is over, the house is finally quiet, and the couch just, pulls us in like a magnet.
We treat stillness as the ultimate cure for whatever is ailing us.
We pull the heavy blanket up to our chins. We turn the television on to a volume that is barely audible, and we just try to become as close to motionless as humanly possible.
But that pull comes from a fundamentally flawed definition of what rest actually is. We've been conditioned to treat rest as simply the absence of effort.
Just doing nothing.
Right. We view it as a void. The underlying assumption is that fatigue is just a single generic battery inside of us. And when that battery runs low, we believe the only way to plug it in and recharge is to reduce all human activity to absolute zero.
Which makes sense on the surface, I guess.
Yeah.
But I know that's not what the science says.
Not at all. Cognitive neuroscience paints a much more complex picture of our biology. Because fatigue is not a single battery. The human body is a collection of distinct, highly specialized systems.
Like what kind of systems?
Well, you have the physical system, the cognitive system, the emotional system, the social system. And these systems, they deplete at entirely different rates. And more importantly, they require entirely different mechanisms to recover.
Let's focus on the cognitive side for a minute, because I feel like mental fatigue is the invisible weight most of us are carrying around today.
Oh, absolutely.
It's that specific heavy exhaustion that just accumulates from sustained concentration, from processing, 100 emails, managing complex schedules, and just constantly regulating our own emotions in a professional environment.
Yes, the knowledge worker's burden.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the fascinating part. Mental fatigue does not reliably respond to physical stillness. Sitting perfectly still on a couch does not cure an exhausted brain.
Wait, really?
Really.
Yeah.
Researchers at the University of Illinois demonstrated this beautifully. They wanted to understand the mechanics of cognitive recovery. So they brought participants into a lab, and had them engage in highly demanding mental tasks.
Like really draining stuff.
Very draining. Activities requiring intense, sustained focus that aggressively depleted their cognitive reserves.
I know that feeling. The kind of tasks that make your eyes burn and your thoughts feel like they're just moving through molasses by the end of the day.
Exactly. So then, the researchers divided the participants to test different recovery methods. One group was instructed to rest passively between these grueling cognitive tasks.
So they just sat perfectly still, doing nothing.
Right. They engaged in what we traditionally define as rest. But the second group, they were instructed to take brief walks. They engaged in physical movement.
And what happened? I'm guessing the walkers did better.
Much better. The participants who took the walks significantly outperformed the ones who sat still. Their mental acuity returned. Their ability to focus rebounded much faster than the people who just rested on the couch.
That is wild, because my instinct is always the couch. Why does that happen?
To understand why, we have to look at the physiology of the brain. When you are performing demanding cognitive work, you are heavily taxing your prefrontal cortex. That's the area of your brain responsible for complex planning, decision-making, and moderating social behavior. And when you sit still after exhausting that region, the metabolic waste products of that mental effort, they just sit there. The fatigue lingers. But when you start walking, you force a massive shift in your biology.
So it's kind of like, think of your brain's prefrontal cortex, like the downtown financial district of a major city.
Oh, I like this.
Right. By 5 o'clock in the evening after a long workday, that downtown area is in absolute gridlock. There are honking horns, blocked intersections, and no one is moving anywhere. It's just a massive traffic jam of cognitive fatigue.
That is a great way to picture it. And when you go home and sit completely still on the couch, you are just leaving all that traffic jammed up in the center of the city. The congestion just remains there.
But taking a walk is like opening up a massive, sprawling sports stadium out in the suburbs.
Yes.
Suddenly, you activate the motor cortex of your brain.
Yeah.
All of that traffic, all of that blood flow and neural energy naturally flows out of the congested downtown district to support this new physical activity.
Exactly. The center of the city finally gets to clear out. The street's empty. The prefrontal cortex gets a genuine break because the body forced the brain to direct its resources somewhere else.
That makes so much sense.
The physical movement acts as an active flush for the cognitive system. It reroutes blood flow, clears out fatigue-inducing neurotransmitters, and forces the exhausted parts of your brain offline. Basically, the body moves so the mind can finally recover.
Okay, but if the biology is that clear, if movement is the cure for a tired mind, then we have a serious modern mystery on our hands.
How so?
Because our instinct is to do the exact opposite. After a day of heavy mental lifting, we go home, we sit down, and we stare at our phones or our televisions.
That's very true. But we have to look back at how human beings lived for the vast majority of our history to understand why our instincts are currently betraying us.
Right, because things were different.
Very different. The separation of physical effort and cognitive effort is a radically new invention. Consider an agrarian life, say, a century ago. A farmer used their body and their mind simultaneously.
I guess the physical labor is obvious, right? Lifting, digging, repairing fences, walking miles across fields.
But the mental labor was running right alongside it. They were reading the weather patterns, analyzing the soil, calculating feed rations, and making deeply complex decisions that determined their survival.
So the physical load and the cognitive load were inextricably linked. They taxed both systems at the exact same time.
Precisely. And because the systems were depleted together, they rested together naturally. When the sun went down, the physical labor ceased. And because the physical work was done, the mental problem-solving largely ceased as well.
So the body and the mind entered a state of rest in perfect synchronization.
Exactly. But the modern world has completely severed that connection. Today, someone working a desk job sits perfectly still in a climate-controlled room for 9 hours.
The physical body is essentially put into a waiting room. It does absolutely nothing all day.
Yes, but the mind is running a marathon. It's navigating office politics, interpreting the tone of text messages, managing competing demands on our attention, and processing a relentless stream of digital information.
So the cognitive system is aggressively drained, while the physical system remains entirely dormant. Synchronization is just completely broken.
And then the modern worker comes home, opens their front door, sits on the couch, and immediately looks at another screen.
Okay, but wait, I have to push back here a little bit.
Go for it.
Because when I finally shut my laptop at the end of the day, the first thing I do is turn on like a baking show or look at photos of my neighbor's gardens on my phone. And I legitimately feel my stress melt away in those moments.
Sure.
I'm not looking at spreadsheets. I'm not answering emails. I'm not doing any work. How is that not resting?
Well, it feels relaxing because the emotional tenor of the stimulation has changed. You're no longer experiencing the stress or anxiety associated with your profession.
Okay, that's true.
But to understand why your brain is not actually resting, we turn to the research of Dr. Andrew Huberman, a neuroscientist at Stanford. He studies neural recovery, and he focuses heavily on a mechanism in the brain known as the default mode network.
All right, let's make sure we keep this completely out of the medical textbook realm, though, because default mode network sounds like a setting on my washing machine.
Fair enough. Think of the default mode network as your brain's night shift maintenance crew.
Oh, I like that.
It's a deeply complex network of interacting brain regions that only activates when your mind is not focused on the outside world. It powers up when you're daydreaming, or when you're letting your mind wander while staring out a window, or, when you're quietly folding laundry without any background noise.
So it's the inward-looking system.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it is biologically essential. When the default mode network turns on, your brain begins the vital work of consolidating memories, making sense of the day's emotional events, and repairing neural pathways.
It clears the deck, basically.
Exactly, but this maintenance crew refuses to clock in if the lights of external stimulation are still on.
Ah, and staring at a screen, even if it is a relaxing baking show or a funny video, that keeps the lights blazing.
It does. The screen provides a constant, rapid-fire stream of external stimuli. Your visual cortex is processing shifting colors and movements. Your cognitive centers are continually interpreting narrative, categorizing information, and reacting to novel sights.
So the flavor of the work has changed, but the demand on your brain remains incredibly high.
Yes, you are tethering your mind to the outside world.
And the maintenance crew never gets the signal to start working.
The default mode network stays suppressed. So what feels like rest is actually just passive consumption. You are not giving your brain a break. You're simply changing the channel.
Wow, changing the channel, not resting, that hits hard.
And the mental fatigue continues to compound day after day because the neural architecture never gets the quiet, inward-focused time it requires to actually repair itself.
Okay, so if the couch is an illusion and our screens are actively preventing our brains from repairing themselves, then we need a totally different approach to recovering our energy. What do we do?
Well, the physiological solution to this modern disconnect is often called the rule of opposites. It's a profoundly simple framework for distributing effort.
The rule of opposites. Okay, how does that work?
When one specific system is depleted, you do not seek absolute stillness. Instead, you deliberately activate a completely different system.
So if I spend my entire day locked in intense analytical thought, staring at screens, writing reports, calculating numbers, my cognitive system is completely drained.
Right.
And the rule of opposites dictates that I shouldn't go home and ask my brain to process a complex documentary or read a dense book.
Yeah.
I need to activate my physical system.
Exactly. You need to chop vegetables, stretch on the floor, or walk around the block. You need to let the body take the lead so the mind can step back.
That makes sense. Does it work the other way around?
The reverse applies just as beautifully. Consider a nurse who has been on their feet for a 12-hour shift, or a carpenter swinging a hammer all day. Their physical system is depleted.
So for them, the couch actually serves a biological purpose.
Yes, finally the couch is justified. But instead of mindless scrolling, they might activate a gentle cognitive process. They read a novel, they listen to a quiet piece of music. They let the mind wander to allow the physical body to repair.
I love that. And we could apply this to every type of exhaustion, right? Like if someone works in customer service or spends all day at a loud, crowded conference, they're dealing with severe social and emotional fatigue.
Oh, massive social fatigue. They've spent hours managing other people's feelings and modulating their own reactions.
So the opposite of that social demand is profound solitude.
Yes. They need to find an empty room. They need to take a walk in the woods alone. They need to completely remove the requirement to interact with another human being.
But what if someone works from home alone all week? Like staring at the same four walls with zero physical interaction.
Then the fatigue is born from isolation. And the opposite is community. They need to go sit in a bustling coffee shop or call a friend or walk through a crowded market. They need to activate the social system to cure the lethargy of being alone.
Okay, here's one more. What about decision fatigue? Because I feel like that is one of the most common forms of exhaustion today.
Oh, absolutely. Parents managing households, managers directing teams, people constantly deciding what to prioritize, what to purchase, how to respond. It's endless.
So for decision fatigue, the opposite must be an activity where the path is already entirely predetermined. You remove the burden of choice completely.
You've got it. You pull weeds in a garden bed. You wash the dishes. You take a walk on a route, so well you don't even have to look at the street signs.
You engage in something repetitive that asks absolutely nothing of your executive function. One system rests entirely while another briefly takes the wheel.
Exactly. And the funny thing is, we don't need to look to neuroscience labs to see this in action. We only need to observe children.
Kids.
Yes. A child playing on a Saturday afternoon is a masterclass in the rule of opposites.
You're right. You watch a 7-year-old, and they never just lock into one mode of operating until they completely collapse.
Never. They spend 45 minutes running around the yard, climbing trees, and yelling at the top of their lungs. Total physical and vocal output.
And then, without anyone instructing them to do so, they just suddenly stop. They go inside, find a quiet corner of the living room, pull out some crayons, and draw in absolute silence for half an hour.
They shift from massive physical exertion to quiet, focused cognitive play. Then they might build a fort, engaging their spatial reasoning. Then they chatter with a sibling, activating their social system.
They are shifting systems flawlessly throughout the day.
And they aren't reading articles on how to optimize their recovery protocols. They aren't trying to manage their energy, they're simply following their energy.
The human body really knows exactly what it needs to maintain balance if we just allow it to speak.
Yes. A child's brain signals, the physical system is tired, let's look at colors for a while, and the child just obeys.
But somewhere along the line, as we transition into adulthood, we systematically train that natural rhythm out of ourselves.
We trade the intuitive childhood blueprint for the 9-to-5 desk, the rigid schedules, and the illusion that sitting perfectly still with a screen is the only way to find relief.
Which brings us right back to Margaret, sitting in her living room with the evening shadows stretching across the floor.
It does, and realizing that the current approach is failing is always the most difficult part of the process. Margaret believes she was fine because she was doing what she was supposed to do.
She was resting on the couch.
Right.
But her journey back to vitality didn't begin because she stumbled across Dr. Huberman's research on the default mode network. And it didn't start because she read a brilliant article about the rule of opposites.
No, it began with the simple, slightly uncomfortable observation of a friend.
Someone who loved her noticed she was fading into the background of her own life.
Oh.
And Margaret possessed enough self-awareness, or, perhaps just enough curiosity, to take that observation seriously instead of becoming defensive.
And curiosity is often the very first step out of deep exhaustion. It allows you to look at your own habits without judgment.
And when Margaret started walking again, there was no cinematic montage. She didn't suddenly feel decades younger and sign up for a marathon.
It was a slow, quiet, almost imperceptible shift.
But over the course of a few weeks, the color started to return to her days. She noticed her thoughts were a little sharper when she woke up. She found herself actually looking forward to making plans with her daughter, rather than viewing those plans as just another exhausting obligation.
She felt the urge to go outside just to feel the temperature of the air.
Yeah. The vitality returned because she allowed her physical body to help prepare her mind.
But she didn't call it a therapeutic protocol.
She didn't even call it exercise. When her daughter finally asked her what had changed, Margaret just smiled and said she was paying attention.
Paying attention to the specific nature of the fatigue. And really, if we strip away all the cognitive science, the brain networks, and the academic studies, we are left with a profoundly practical philosophy for how to live.
Which is?
The goal of your day is not to eliminate effort. A life completely devoid of effort is stagnant. The goal is to distribute that effort wisely, to let one part of yourself carry the load while another part finds genuine renewal.
To trust that your body and your mind know how to heal if you just give them the right environment. We want to leave you with a final thought to carry with you. When you reach the end of a long day, when you feel that heavy pull toward the couch and the screen, pause for just a moment. Pay attention to the invisible weight you're carrying, and make sure you ask the right question before you choose how to spend your evening.
Not, do I need rest?
What exactly is tired?